Ladies and gentlemen, this Chicago Bulls video should have been about free agents, but I've caved in to some very big news today, and it is a trade rumor that I'd like to discuss, and that's exactly what it is, a trade rumor. This is by no means official, this by all no means will happen, but what I do want to talk about is probably a fan favorite for Chicago Bulls fans, and alike for a lot of the NBA talent out there. And I want to talk about a trade rumor that involves Michael Porter Jr. and the Denver Nuggets. Let's do it. What's up, everybody? It's the Aidan Sports Show. Welcome back to another video. Today, we've got another Chicago Bulls video in relation to the NBA trade period. As always, man, there's always going to be hype around this trade period, especially for Chicago. And we finally got that first piece of trade rumors that involves the Denver Nuggets. But before we get started, please like and subscribe to the Aidan Sports Show YouTube channel. Turn notifications on and let me know in the comments below, who would you like to see from the Denver Nuggets come on their way to Chicago, and who are you willing to sacrifice from Chicago to bring some talent from Denver in? Because there's no doubt about it, man, the Denver Nuggets are a better team than the Chicago Bulls. They do have that better roster. They have Nikola Jokic, they have Jamal Murray, they have so many pieces around them that it would be fantastic on other teams, but are sacrificed to make sure that the Denver Nuggets are as good as they possibly can be. And the Denver Nuggets is a very special team in terms of our management. Of course, Arturius was the one that built that Denver Nuggets team. So of course, finally, and I'm surprised it did not come sooner, we got a trade rumor that was talking about the Denver Nuggets. So let's talk about it, why don't we? Obviously, I talked about Michael Porter Jr. That is the big key here. Michael Porter Jr. is the one that is definitely being talked about that's coming on his way to Chicago. But there is talks about more Denver Nuggets players coming to Chicago, and that's the big thing here. More Denver Nuggets players coming to Chicago. Because if you're just going to trade Michael Porter Jr. on his own, I don't think most of our players would be worth that, because there is a very big risk attached to Michael Porter Jr. coming to Chicago. Arturius loves the risks, but sometimes risks are not always the key solution to your business. And I fully understand that. But again, in AK we trust, I will trust whatever he decides to do. But of course, the people that are being discussed that's going on their way to Denver is the big thing here. So I want to talk about what I think Michael Porter Jr. would add to this team. I want to talk about who the outgoings to Denver, what could that be, potential risks involved with this trade, and maybe some even trade assets that Denver could give us to make sure that this deal can go through. Now, I'll tell you my verdict on any deal with Denver at the end of the video as well. So let's get started. I want to talk about Michael Porter Jr. Let's talk about him. He's a fan favorite for the Chicago Bulls. Chicago Bulls fans alike everywhere across the world wanted Michael Porter Jr. drafted when he was available. And unfortunately, that did not happen. But with that not happening, we got a very good young center, potentially power forward, at Wendell Carter, that in my opinion is someone that I believe now, maybe not back then, but definitely now, we made the right choice. Because I think Wendell Carter has a bright, talented future and could arguably be our best player going forward, with a few years under his belt of hopefully being more involved in the offense, and the defense will speak for itself. I think Wendell Carter could be the key to the Chicago Bulls' success in the near and distant future for us. So Michael Porter Jr. was a risk that, in my opinion, the Bulls did not want to take at the time, and I fully 100% agree with the Chicago Bulls not doing that deal at that time to pick Michael Porter Jr. However, Denver Nuggets and Arturius took that risk, and that risk for them has paid off tenfold, because he is a very young, bright shooter that could shoot over anybody, a fantastic offensive weapon. He could do it in a system, he could do it on his own. He has superstar potential, and that is something that cannot go unnoticed when we're talking about a trade for Michael Porter Jr. right now. He's on a very good rookie contract. He obviously likes Chicago, and the Chicago Bulls like him. So if everything goes to plan, this could be a player that, whether it happens now or it happens in free agency or it happens at any other time during the Chicago Bulls lifespan and Michael Porter Jr.'s lifespan, I 100% believe this player could end up being in Chicago one day. Is today that day? Well, let's talk about the risk and also who will be involved in a trade for Michael Porter Jr. So, the risk is obviously his injuries. Of course, a back injury is something that could be catastrophic to an NBA career. And so far in the NBA, it hasn't really hurt him. But of course, back injuries are lingering. They're lingering types of injuries that can always come back in one way or another. It could be drastic, it could be minor. Back injuries are one of the worst injuries you could get, man. And it's similar to a shoulder injury or even an ACL. They're bad. They're not comfortable, and it can definitely throw you off. And I think Michael Porter Jr.'s risk, it's there, but so was Zach Levine when we traded for him. There's obviously an element of a calculated risk there with Michael Porter Jr. that Artorias took before and can take again. But that is something to consider if you're looking to take him to the next level and make him our superstar player. He does have that bad injury that took him out for a year or so in the NBA. And that's going to be a big thing for a lot of people. It's going to be a big thing for the Chicago Bulls. And it could be a big thing for Denver because they took a chance on him. And maybe that chance could end up worthwhile. Or maybe he could be sacrificed for the Denver Nuggets team. Now, talking about the Chicago Bulls side of things, who would we have to give up in turn to get Michael Porter Jr.? And of course, Michael Porter Jr., I should say, is not the only player that we'll be discussing in this video in terms of the Denver Nuggets, because obviously Denver Nuggets would have to give us a lot in terms of this player for the Chicago Bulls. And the person that has been named in these rumors, and again, these are just rumors. I'm not saying this is going to happen, nor do I believe it will, but I'll talk about that later. The person that's being talked about in these trade rumors is Zach Levine, our best player. And that's the key thing here. Zach Levine has been an absolutely fantastic player for the Chicago Bulls. He's elevated us to a place where if we didn't have him, we would be dead last in the league. And now that we did have him, he has carried us in many ways in this season. He carried us many ways last season, and he's getting better and better as the years go by. He's on a very good contract for us as well. Definitely underpaid, and we're looking to see what he could do in the future for the Chicago Bulls. But his name has been in trade rumors for a lot of these things, and that's what you expect. Your best players will always be in trade rumors, especially when your best player is not an untouchable player like Zach Levine at the moment. So, Zach Levine for Michael Porter Jr. They're very similar players, I'm not going to lie. I think Zach Levine has more to his game at the moment, but of course Michael Porter Jr. is younger, has probably a better upside potential-wise than Zach Levine, but that is also a discussion to talk about for a person like Zach Levine who's still very much on the upside. Zach Levine at the moment is a player that has more to his game. I think he's a little bit of a better defender, which is not saying much. But overall, he's our best player. And that's going to be a lot to give up for Michael Porter Jr., who is just as much of a risk, if not more, than what Zach Levine is at the moment. So in order for this deal to go, in my opinion, there has to be more to this deal. What can we get from the Denver Nuggets that could potentially lead to us getting a fair deal out of this? And whatever you guys think, there is a deal that could be done with the Denver Nuggets. I am thinking that this is a little bit of a smokescreen, but again, there are players there on the Denver Nuggets that I want on the Chicago Bulls and I believe will take us to an even better level. For example, Jeremy Grant. I know he could potentially be an unrestricted free agent, but he does have a player option, and if he does re-sign for that player option, we could go for a trade for Jeremy Grant. I would love Jeremy Grant on the Chicago Bulls. He's a perfect type of player. He's a 3-and-D player, plays great defense. He can shoot the ball, he can drive it to the paint, and he had a very good playoff stint with Denver Nuggets against the Lakers specifically. There's a big player there that we could potentially be bringing and see how we go with that type of player. Obviously, you have Will Barton and likes, you have Gary Harris, you have a lot of players that I think would do very, very well on this Chicago Bulls team. So there's the question that lies to you. If you were going to do a trade for Zach Levine and Michael Porter Jr., who else would you add to the fold? Now, let's talk about what I think about this rumor. I think this rumor is specifically talked about by the media just because of the relationship of AK and the Denver Nuggets. I do not believe any trade involving the Denver Nuggets for Zach Levine and Michael Porter Jr. will happen at this point in time. I don't see how it works for either team. I think the Denver Nuggets are very, very keen on keeping Michael Porter Jr. Again, he does have a very good upside, and I don't think Denver wants to see that upside wasted on another team when it could very well work out for the Denver Nuggets. He's a fantastic scorer. Denver would do very well to keep him on the team to help the likes of Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic, who are the main type of people to guard. You could have someone like Michael Porter Jr. that would excel. And yes, Zach Levine would excel as well. But again, the rookie contract is something that is going to be extremely difficult to trade for, because they would want to keep that type of contract around for quite some time. So yeah, this deal, in my opinion, doesn't make any sense for anybody. Let's be real. It doesn't make sense for the Chicago Bulls. Zach Levine has done more than enough to give an opportunity in this front office with this team. Zach Levine has been very, very well thought of by this front management. There are countless people, even on my YouTube comments, saying that Zach Levine will not leave the Chicago Bulls, and I tend to agree with them. I don't see how Zach Levine would go to Denver Nuggets at the moment. I just don't see how it happens. So the fact is, we could put all the players for Denver that we want to make it a fair trade, and I do think there could be a fair trade there. Definitely 100% can be, but I don't think it makes sense for either team. I think Michael Porter Jr. can come to the Bulls one day. I think he's very well thought of with the Bulls. I think the Bulls like him a lot, and I think he likes us a lot. And one day down the line, I could definitely see him coming to us and playing for us, whether it's in free agency or even another trade at another time. But at this point in time with this team, I don't think we should be getting our best player, getting rid of our best player for a potential player that could be better, but also has a very large risk name. The only reason I see the Chicago Bulls even considering this is for cap space. We're going to get rid of Otto Porter. You could potentially not sign Lowry. You're going to have cap space. I don't think that's going to be an issue. So I just don't see this happening for the time being. And if there is about cap space, we could always do the trade next year. So the fact is, this is something that I don't think will happen at all, but dreamers will continue to dream, and maybe there is something that could be there. I just think the relationship for AK and Denver is something that makes this trade rumor very, very obvious. It's a very obvious thing to link, and I don't think it's true at all. But again, I could be wrong. I'm not the person that makes these trade rumors up. I see what I read, and I react to it. And I've given the bait. I didn't want to make this video because I didn't believe it, but I know that a lot of people are fan favorites of Michael Porter Jr. So I want to come out and say, as much as I don't think this trade will happen, I do think down the line there will be a chance for Michael Porter Jr. to join the Bulls. And this is way, way, way down the line. Not now, not in the next year or so, but maybe down the line there's an opportunity there for a player of his caliber, if he even gets higher and higher in his potential, to come and play for the Bulls. So don't give your hopes up. But at the moment, I just don't see that happening. So thank you guys for watching. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think about this trade rumor? What would you give up for Michael Porter Jr. and other players for the Denver Nuggets? Basically, what I'm asking is, if you had to make up a trade with the Denver Nuggets, what would it be? Anyway, thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe if you're new. I'm going to try and get to 240 subscribers by the end of the month. If I don't, it's not going to be the end of the world. The fact is, I will get it eventually. So thank you guys for all of your support on 230 subscribers. I will see you all in another Chicago Bulls video. Hopefully this time there's no major news, and I want to talk about some free agents that the Chicago Bulls should pursue. Have a wonderful day. I will see you in another Chicago Bulls video. Take care and peace.